So we hear a lot of things in the news now of people being deported.
What's the biggest reason people lose their green cards?
The difference was Hi, my name is Ryan Barshop. I'm an American immigration attorney based in Manila, Philippines, and Ho Chi Minh City, Vietnam.
Hi, I'm David Enterline. I'm a U.S. immigration attorney, and I have an office in Ho Chi Minh City, Vietnam, and with Ryan, and an office in Manila, the Philippines.
For the uninitiated, what is a green card?
Well, a green card is simply an identification that identifies someone as a lawful permanent resident. But it's really identification, but it's more of your status in that you can be in the U.S. lawfully and permanently.
Permanently?
Yes.
What is the difference between a green card and citizenship?
With a green card, for example, you can't vote versus citizens can vote. There are certain jobs, occupations, or positions, mainly in the government, that will only take citizens and not lawful permanent residents or green card holders. So there is a difference between the two. Another thing you consider too is even if you are a green card holder or a lawful permanent resident, as we're seeing today, you could still be deported from the United States because you're not a citizen yet. So even if you have a green card, even though you could be there lawfully and permanently, it's still a privilege to be in the United States, not a right. Versus if you're a citizen, you have a right to be there.
In addition, permanent residents are expected to live and reside permanently in the U.S., and if they want to go outside the U.S. for long periods of time, there are some restrictions they have to be careful about. Whereas U.S. citizens, if they want to, they can move outside the U.S. and live outside the U.S. indefinitely as long as they want.
Can you go into some of the details of how long you can leave with a green card and maintain your green card status?
Well, contrary to what a lot of people think, there is no minimum period of time in which you must stay in the U.S. as a permanent resident, and there's no minimum period of time within which if you're outside the U.S., that you must return to the U.S. The test is if you leave the U.S. and you're returning, then can you demonstrate that it was a temporary visit abroad and you're returning to a permanent residence? There are some numbers that people hear, like if you return every 6 months, you can keep your green card. They're saying is I can keep my resident status, and that is not exactly correct. I mean, the question of whether you're going to keep your green card and your resident status is a question of your intent and what your true actions are. And so just returning every 6 months is not a guarantee. It's certainly, there's reasons why it's safer, but it's not a guarantee if you're not actually living in the U.S.
One thing we ask clients when they're applying for a green card is, what is your purpose of living in the United States? Why do you want to live there? Like, I make it very clear, you cannot use your green card in the same way I use my APEC card to get fast access in and out of Asian airports, because the purposes of a green card is lawful permanent resident, not lawful temporary resident. So it's very important that if you go for a green card, you know that you're going to be living there. Now, of course, things could happen and that could change your course of plans, but it really is, the idea is to live there and stay there permanently.
Is it implied that if you have a green card, eventually you'll become a citizen, or are these two completely separate, tracks?
In order to be eligible for citizenship, you have to have a certain number of days in which you were a permanent resident. If you acquired your green card through marriage to a U.S. citizen, then you have to be a green card holder for at least 3 years, and you have had to spend at least 18 months of physical presence in the United States. Now, if you acquire the green card through another channel besides marriage to a U.S. citizen, whether it's investment, whether it's through employment, whether it's immigration through a parent or a sibling, then it's 5 years. Then you also have to look at the amount of days that you've spent in the United States as a green card are also different. So that's something that you look into when you have a green card. Getting a green card does not necessarily mean you want to be a citizen, but you at least have to have a green card before you become a citizen.
There are some exceptions to those 3-year and 5-year periods. For example, if you serve in the U.S. military, then you can be accepted for citizenship without those periods of time.
Suppose you're married to a U.S. citizen and you got your green card, and your U.S. citizen spouse is working for an American-owned company outside the United States. you can apply for citizenship without having to spend the required number, without having to show physical presence within the United States based on the number of days. That's a fast track to citizenship. But it's a very specific situation, and it's an exception, not the norm.
Are they bypassing the whole green card, or they're just going straight into citizenship?
No, you have to have a green card first,
Right.
but they will waive your physical presence requirements
Oh, okay.
and the amount of time that you must have had a green card if you fall under that exception. The main exceptions are spouse of a military personnel abroad, spouse of a diplomat abroad, or more commonly, spouse of a U.S. citizen who is engaged in employment abroad.
So I'm not sure if this is something that you guys might be familiar with, but my grandfather and my grandparents immigrated to the U.S., I think, from Ukraine in like 1910. Now, what's changed since the massive influx of immigrants from Europe until now with all of these stipulations?
I presume your grandparents came through Ellis Island?
I think so, yeah.
So back then, starting after World War II, the immigration laws were codified.
What's that word?
Codified. They passed a number of immigration laws into place that required then, in order to immigrate in the United States. Back then you would get a quota. You would go to an embassy in Europe, and let's say your grandparents went to the embassy in Kiev. They were given a quota number. Once they got that quota, then they were able to get on a ship and come to the United States through Ellis Island and be allowed to be there in the United States. After World War II, starting in the 1950s, the Immigration Nationality Act was passed, which required, now they set the laws in place of how someone can enter the United States legally, how they can get a green card, and how they become a citizen through naturalization.
Okay. And then since then, it's more or less the situation now with specific requirements to immigrate.
Well, the requirements continue to change. They continue to add Congress, which is the governing authority which controls our immigration laws, continues to add or eliminate, continues to modify the existing requirements. They can add, or they can change it, or they can eliminate. But that's the role of Congress, not the president.
Why do some people keep their green card and never become citizens?
Personal reasons. Some people just don't want to be a citizen. Some people, because when you become let's say, for example, inheritance, that's a common reason. Let's say if they they become a citizen and they stand to inherit a lot of money in the country where they were a citizen of, and they become a U.S. citizen, they can't inherit that money. That's one example. But mainly it's just a personal choice. Maybe they decide, I don't want to be a citizen. I don't feel any ties to the U.S. I feel more ties to my home nationality.
There are many countries around the world that only allow you to maintain the citizenship of that country. And if you obtain citizenship in another country, then you would lose your home country's citizenship. And
Right.
that's another reason why people may decide to never become a U.S. citizen.
So what's the biggest reason people lose their green cards?
Well, Ryan mentioned that once you have a green card, then you have the right to live in the U.S. It's a right until there's a violation that may cause you to lose that right. And one of the big reasons is committing a crime.
Mm-hmm.
Like, for example, in general, a felony may cause you to be deportable, and you might have to leave the U.S.
Another thing to consider here is that the laws that have been in place for decades, which give the government the right to deport people, even if they have green cards, even not for felonies, even for misdemeanors, has always been in place. It wasn't enforced. So we hear a lot of things in the news now of people being deported. And it's very sad. And it's based on laws that there's been no change in the law that states, okay, now this person's automatically deportable if they're a green card holder and they committed offense even 20 years ago. The difference was it wasn't enforced. Now we're seeing people who had convictions 30 years ago, never had a problem, were even able to enter and exit the U.S. on their green card, that issue. And now they're finding out when they go into maybe an immigration hearing or go for a check-in, unfortunately, ICE agents, Immigration Customs Enforcement agents, are waiting outside the office to detain them. It's terrible what's happened, but it is the law that's been in place. So there's been no changes in that.
Let's get into what are some green card misconceptions?
One misconception is that the green card is just a visa you can use to go back and forth between your home country and the U.S., and you don't have any other really obligations, for example, to maintain a residence in the U.S.
A couple of misconceptions are the amount of time that one can remain outside the United States and still keep their green card. There's a lot of chatter or internet or on the internet or in chats about you have to enter the United States every 6 months to maintain your green card. That's not true. It's a subjective test. So it's another thing is, so it's always about what is the intent of the person as the green card holder, the lawful permanent resident. They could be outside for more than a year. They could be outside for 2 years, but they continue to maintain their lawful permanent resident status, such as filing taxes, maintaining an address in the United States, and that their stay outside the United States remains temporary, versus some people, for example, have been outside for less than 6 months, but they're just going for a short trip in and out to restart the clock. You're not supposed to do that. You're supposed to always maintain status. So if you're outside the United States more than 6 months, outside the United States, we'd have to examine why you outside and do you continue to maintain your lawful permanent residence intent.
Is there a set list or criteria of things you have to do to show your intent of being a resident?
Well, again, intent is subjective. So that's what's in your head, and we don't really know what's in your head, so we have to look at your actions. Where do you spend most of your time? Where do you work or have a job, or where is your business? Do you have a place to live permanently in the U.S.? Do you own a home or rent an apartment? Do you have family members, and where are they? What are they doing? Do you pay insurance? Filing taxes, which is actually a requirement. Are you doing that or not? Do you have a telephone number? Do you have bills, utilities? You have a car? All these are the objective factors to show that you're actually maintaining a residence, that you actually have the residence in the U.S.
Are your kids enrolled in school in the United States? Do you have a U.S. driver's license?
Right. It's
credit cards?
Yeah, it's just painting the whole picture that you intend to live here. You are living here. You're not just.
And these are for people who are outside, who are spending long periods of time outside the United States. Not if you're doing a temporary trip abroad to visit family members.
Mm-hmm.
That's different than just spending. You got a green card, but then you decided to return back to Asia for indefinite period of time on a one-way ticket.